we have a goal in the IEP that John will follow school rules and have appropriate behavior in the classroom. Let's think about how we can make this a little more measurable, Janess. What is the student's present level of performance and behavior, and what are
Yeah, I guess my first question would be, if I was confronted with that goal, is more appropriate is a very subjective phrase and probably not very measurable. So I can describe John to you. I can describe what he's doing now, and I think that would be an appropriate present level of performance, because it's hard to get a present level of performance on any kind of an objective test. So let's see if we can describe John this way, because I know John. John kicks and hits his classroom staff, his teacher, and the teacher's aide that's in there at least twice a day. And he outrightly refuses to follow directives that the teacher and the assistant give him. He yells and screams and throws a tantrum, which involves throwing himself on the floor, probably 3 times an hour, so it's pretty frequently occurring behavior. Transitions are the times that we usually get that behavior, when he's moving from activity to activity. So if he doesn't get his way, or if he has to transition to something he's less like a less preferred activity, he will tantrum, maybe stomp his feet, kick, flail, hit people around him up to 10 to 15 times a day. So that's kind of his present level of performance right now, and I think that should be a targeted goal.
That's very helpful information, Janess. What if we reworded that goal to say, given a small group structured setting, John will transition from one activity to another, example, no yelling, and with hands and feet to self without kicking and hitting.
Yeah, I think we could measure that. That's very observable. I think that, if we looked at that as an annual goal, then we'd have to write objectives to support that, and we know that initially he's going to have more trouble. We want to get him to doing that most of the time, but maybe we could say, given that setting, over the first quarter of the year, if this IEP is for a whole year, for the first quarter, maybe 40% of the opportunities he has, he does that, and then maybe by the third semester he's doing it 60% of the time, and by the end of the year he's doing it 75% or 80% of the time. Would that make sense?
Yes. Okay, that's a good way to measure that. So maybe the first objective could be that using his picture schedule, John will end the activity he is working on quietly within 3 minutes.
I think that that's a great objective that supports that goal, and then you could do the measurements of 40%, 60%, 75, 80% by the end of the year. I think that does support the goal. Another thing that we would want to address, or another objective that we could do to meet that goal, would be, given teacher direction, John will move quietly to the next activity area and wait with his hands and feet to himself. And again, use a 40% measure for partway through the year and a 75 or an 80% measure for the end of the year.
Okay, that's great. Well, we have maybe one more target behavior that you mentioned there that we need to address in the objectives and benchmarks. Given teacher instructions, John will begin the next week activity within 2 minutes. Using the same measures to collect that data.
Begin the new or the next activity. I think that's good, because that's, that addresses that transition piece.
Okay, so the method of evaluation to track his progress in this goal, should we use data collection?
I think data collection, certainly teacher observation, but the teacher can be taking data all year long to say, and to report back to the parents, this is how we're doing on that objective towards that goal. I think
that's great.
That's a great way to measure that. I think that when we're thinking about writing goals and objectives and having them be SMART, there are several components to always keep in our mind when we're trying to revise goals and make them measurable. And I think we always have to talk about, number one, the specific conditions under which we're going to be working on that goal. Then we absolutely have to describe what the student is going to do, the actual behavior. We have to specify what level of prompting the student is going to have supporting him or her, and then how are we going to measure it. And it also would be very important to talk about, and how is that going to be taught and by whom. So to sort of give a concrete nature to that, I'm going to use my own son as an example. I'm going to talk about Sam. So one of the things we worked on for Sam in the specific content of snack time we wrote an objective that said during snack time in the regular education setting, so that specifies the content, where that's going to happen. Sam is going to choose from among 3 foods symbols provided on the cover of his PECS notebook, the Picture Exchange Communication System notebook, to request a food or a drink item from his staff or his peers. That identifies the strategies, the materials, and the teaching methods. So now we're going to specify what level of prompting is going to be necessary for Sam at the very beginning of when we're teaching this goal and then towards the end of the year. So by the end of the year, we want to say with no teacher prompts and no peer prompts. Maybe the first objective for that goal might involve 1 or 2 teacher prompts or a peer prompt. And then we're going to use some meaningful criteria, which might be for 4 out of 5 consecutive sessions. And then we're going to identify data collection as the means of measuring his achievement in this objective. So as measured by teacher observation and recorded on a data collection form. So that then would convey all those components of the SMART goal.